Hello and welcome to the Six Rivers Media Sports Huddle. I'm your host, sports editor J.D. Vaughn. Joining me is Andrew Smith, Jeff Birchfield. We've got a lot to talk about, Week 4 and then previewing Week 5 of the high school football season. But first, we want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Lazy J Farms Old Fashioned Butcher Shop.
Lazy J Farms has been raising the finest cattle and all-natural pork for 3 generations on the family farm in Fall Branch. Their blonde Aquitaine herd offers a leaner, healthier, and more tasteful beef. And the butcher shop is local, farm to table, and 100% authentic. This is the way your grandfather shopped for me, with steaks cut to order, quality assured, and ready to ship to your door. Open Thursday through Saturday on Bloomingdale Road in Kingsport. Come see us.
Now, you may notice, of course, there are only 3 of us here today. I just want to take some time, before we get into this week's podcast, we just want to take some time to acknowledge Dylan Young, the mastermind, if you will, behind this podcast. No longer with us right now, but we're thinking about you, Dylan, and I know I speak on behalf of everyone here when I say that you're in our thoughts and our prayers, and we hope everything goes well for you. We'll take it from here. But guys, just a recap of the Week 4 of the high school football season. Some great games. Honestly, one game that surprised me a little bit was not so much Dobbins-Bennett beating Jefferson County, but beating Jefferson County the way that they did, 37-14. And then Science Hill, again, not really a surprise, but just the way Science Hill controlled the line of scrimmage against Union. Of course, we'll get to that game in just a moment. Gate City, the game that you covered, Andrew, came up short at Abingdon, but just so much action to get to. And Jeff, we're gonna start with you. Science Hill and Union. Union had not been scored upon yet, so we wondered how that would go. Just take us through that game, Jeff.
Well, Science Hill scored on them quick, a couple of touchdowns. Of course, Baylor necessary. It seems like we talk about every week. He scored the first touchdown. Union did have a long drive to start the game the first half, really burned a lot of the clock, but then Science Hill starting the second quarter in this area, gets in there for a touchdown. Then he comes back where he really stars on defense, and he gets the interception, sets up a short field for Science Hill. Aiden Perry scores from there. It's 14-0. Science Hill builds a 31-0 lead over Union before they finally score a late touchdown. But, man, you talk about standouts. Necessary, I know we talk about him every week, but he seems like he could be our player of the week every week because, like, he had 15 tackles, interception, like I said, ran for a touchdown. Cade Fleeman, a big game for him as well. He ended up with 11 tackles, and then you had some other guys stand out. The quarterback, Spencer Taylor, finally got on track and had 197 passing yards. And then one of our players of the week this week was Stephen Famolian. A huge game, both receiving yards, and he had a forced fumble, on the defensive end. And, just a fantastic effort on both sides of the ball. And like I said, Science Hill, that was a big emphasis coming in, how Union hadn't been scored upon, but Science Hill, said they needed to control the game early, and they did exactly that, as Stacy Carter talked about.
And we were, and I thought, hats off to Union, how they kept the ball. I think they kept the ball for about 8 minutes. And sometimes when a team keeps it 8 minutes, everybody's getting anxious over the sideline, not just coaches, but players and everybody. And we were able to stay calm. And, we finally, they got off schedule a little bit, and we got the ball back. And was able to stop them on downs, and to be able to go and score right after, pretty quickly, right after that happened, I thought was a big deal. And it was still tough going, scoring early. Those guys weren't going to give that up early. We were in that jumbo set and was attacking them, and it was hard going for a while. But we were able to get that first score in there, and that kind of broke the ice. And then after that, I thought we played very well.
So Science Hill gets the win, and obviously with it not being a conference win, it's a win that's easy to overlook. But let's not do that, because Union in Class 2, they could contend, and some people say maybe even win a state championship in the VHSL. So this is a win that must not be overlooked at the end of the day. Jeff, just were you surprised that Science Hill just controlled the game the way that they did? I mean, that was big.
Well, I say yes and no, because Science Hill controlled the Elizabethan game, pretty much. And we know Elizabethan, great team up front as well. And then they beat Jefferson County, the week before was Jefferson County so big up front like that. So that transitioning from Science Hill to Dobyns-Bennett, I'm a little bit like you. I was surprised the margin of victory in that game because, Science Hill went down to the final minute against Jefferson County before they were able to put them away.
And talking to Joey Christian just today about that Jefferson County game, and one thing he said was Dobyns-Bennett was not at a size advantage on the line of scrimmage, where he said they might have had a little bit of an advantage on West Ridge. He says Jefferson County had a clear size advantage on the line of scrimmage this past week, but the scoreboard did not reflect that. Dobyns-Bennett 37, Jefferson County 14. Now, it was close early. Jefferson County answered on its opening drive, but Dobyns-Bennett just controls the game from there, and Jeff County doesn't score again until the final play of the third quarter, but by then Dobyns-Bennett had the game. You felt it was well under control. So Dobyns-Bennett and quarterback Austin Sykes, just one of his better games this year, and another player who stood out, Tylen Taylor. Joey Christian talked about him getting more involved. He only had 2 catches, but they were big catches, and they covered 50 yards. And both times he had a defender right in his face, and he jumped over the defender and caught both of those. So he got a lot more involved. Dobyns-Bennett eventually scored on that drive. So just big plays from big-time players for Dobyns-Bennett. That's one of the big reasons they got it done. And speaking of big-time players on defense, Kosiah Steele, it seems like he was in on just about every other tackle. Easily a double-digit night in the tackle department for Kosiah. Jefferson County's running game, Skylar Thomas does crack the century mark, and Jefferson County does move the ball, but Dobyns-Bennett they just held firm, and Jefferson County really struggled at converting on third downs. And this is a huge game because now it would take nothing short of a miracle for Jefferson County to repeat as region champions. So you got the impression Dobyns-Bennett and Science Hill, could they be on that collision course? Now, don't forget about West Ridge, because West Ridge gets the 22-16 win over Lakeway Christian. Trent Tatum, monster game for him. Well, maybe not, even if it's not statistically, he had 3 catches for 52 yards and a touchdown. But, of course, he also blocked an extra point. Comes up big for the Wolves. Trey Frazier, a big game rushing, 110 yards, 135 passing. Did get intercepted a couple of times by Lakeway, but when it mattered most, Trey Frazier, Ethan Amix drove the Wolves down the field. West Ridge gets the bounce-back win, 22-16. So West Ridge, don't count them out either, because if they can maybe sneak up on Science Hill, West Ridge has been there. They finished region runner-up their first year of football, so don't count West Ridge out just yet. Now, Andrew, the game you were at, Gate City went up to Abingdon for their region opener, or should I say district opener, the Mountain 7 district opener at Abingdon. Fell behind early, just couldn't catch up. What were some of your takeaways from that game?
I think the biggest thing I took away from that ball game is just Abingdon's physicality. They really took it to Gate City early. Their opening possession took up over half the first quarter and ended in a touchdown run from Owen Barr. He had 3 total touchdowns on the game, 2 rushing, 1 receiving out of the backfield. So it was a big game for him and the Falcons. But yeah, Gate City just struggled to match their physicality. That opening drive for Abingdon, Gate City responds with a 3-and-out. Another long touchdown drive for Abingdon, another Gate City 3-and-out. And from that point, it was just hard for the Blue Devils to play catch-up. Jeremy Housewright tried to mix and match, tried to see if anything could work at halftime. He moved Jackson Jones to quarterback, and the offense started to move a little bit. They only had 22 yards of total offense at halftime. So they started to move the ball a little bit, still couldn't find the end zone. It'll certainly be interesting to see how Jones gets utilized here in the coming weeks for Gate City. And talk about the physicality on the offensive side of the ball. Walker Hillman, the standout running back for the Blue Devils, he struggled to find any kind of running lane. Had 15 rushes, but only 43 yards. So the Falcons' defense swarmed well. They filled the run gaps well. Just a very strong, very strong Abingdon team that's going to be a lot of trouble in that Mountain 7 district. Not just, obviously, for Gate City, but I think the whole district.
Yeah, speaking of a lot of trouble, Colby Jones, Jeff, is causing teams a lot of trouble right now. 260-plus yards, 5 touchdowns, in just one half, no less. 4 of them, Garrett Sellers catches 4 passes, almost 200 yards. All 4 of those catches were touchdowns. Just when you think about what Unicoi County has done so far, what what does that say about just how dangerous that team is?
Well, we talk about Kobe Jones seems like Baylor necessary every week. He's a guy that stands out, but he's got over 660 passing yards for the season. He's a standout like we've talked about in every sport he plays. I mean, he's, one of the best players on the basketball court as well as on the football field. And they've got a lot of great athletes like that. You mentioned Garrett Sellers. Coda Cutlip had another big game. He's a good receiver for them. Also Branson Saltz has been running the ball very well for them. So, Unicoi County's offense has looked pretty dynamic so far.
Yeah. Now, Sullivan East, one thing, the Patriots did have some success on their opening drive, got in the red zone, but a penalty backed them up. They had to kick a field goal. But as far as offense goes, that was about it for Sullivan East. Peyton Lingerfelt did go down with an injury, did not return. But Coach J.C. Simmons did indicate, is cautiously optimistic that he should be ready to go, or hopefully will be ready to go for this week's region game at Granger. So Sullivan East, don't count them out just yet. Sure, they got off to a slow start, but that region win over Volunteer may have changed everything in terms of the playoff picture for them.
Yeah, it may have for a playoff picture, but you were talking collision course earlier. It seems like definitely Unicoi County and Johnson County seem to be, headed on a collision course there in Region 1-3A.
Yep, especially depending on how both teams do against Gatlinburg-Pittman. All three of those teams we just mentioned, by the way, Johnson County, Unicoi, Gatlinburg-Pittman, all in the Class 3A top 10 in the Tennessee Sports Writers Association poll. Oh, not to mention, there's a fourth team, Pigeon Forge, that is one vote from outside the top 10. So what is that? When's the last time you saw that from one region?
Yeah, no, it's very impressive. It's one of the strongest regions that I can recall ever seeing, just in general, especially at the 3A level. It's usually one or two teams at the very top of Region 1-3A, but man, 4 teams with a legitimate shot to make a lot of noise this postseason.
Yeah. Now, Elizabethton, Cherokee does put up a fight at Elizabethton, but comes up short, 41-13. So speaking of collision courses, we could have another Elizabethton-Greenville collision course at the end of the year. No surprise there. 3 rushing touchdowns for the Wallen cousins, Jay Bird and Justice. And then a solid passing game from Rhett Slagle. They were able to fend off a relentless Cherokee team. But this Cherokee team, guys, is pretty dangerous. Yes, they're in the toughest part of their schedule right now. Greenville, Elizabethton, back-to-back games. It doesn't get much tougher than that in Class 4A. The Chiefs have a big game this week against Northview Academy, a game that could have serious playoff implications come November. So just look out for the Chiefs. And then speaking of look out, my gosh, what can you say about Rye Cove? Wins by 3 touchdowns at Honaker, the defending Region 1D champion.
Yeah, no, it was a very impressive night for Rye Cove. Their offense, man, has just really gotten off to a strong start. They're averaging over 58 points a night. That's a lot of points. That's a lot of offense. Landon Lane had a monster night for the War Eagles, 4 touchdowns. Just overall, very strong performance from the Rye Cove offense. That's what they count on, right? That's their bread, their butter, and man, they showcased it well against Honaker, a big opponent there.
Yep, a long touchdown run from Will Rollins, of course. And they got multiple players involved. Of course, you can do that when you're winning comfortably. And of course, the final score there, 52-32 in favor of Rye Cove. And by the way, did I mention Rye Cove was 11-2 last season? Both losses were to Honaker, including the region championship game. So how far can the War Eagles go this year? Wait and see. If that's any indication, look out.
The Lazy J Farms Tailgate Box offers great value all season long. Get 40 pounds of meat for only $116. That's 5 pounds of beef patties and 3 pounds of chicken breasts, 1 pound of thick cut bacon, 3 packs of premium beef hot dogs and 2 packs of Chicago dogs, and 4 pounds of thick cut pork chops, all for $116 at Lazy J Farms Butcher Shop in Kingsport. Visit us online at lazyjbeef.com.
One other game from Week 4 that I just about forgot to mention, and I don't know how considering the rivalry. It was a Carter County rivalry, Happy Valley and Hampton. Happy Valley gets its first win in the series since 2019, Andrew. Oh, by the way, did I mention the Warriors did it without throwing a pass? Who does Jason Jarrett think he is, Zach Benfield?
Yeah, no, it was definitely a unique game for Happy Valley. Obviously, both Happy Valley and Hampton wanted to establish the run. Now, granted, I don't know if we necessarily counted on it to being that extent for the Warriors, but still, big win for Happy Valley, big game for Gabe McDougald for the Warriors. Couple touchdowns and a big block punt as well. Just a massive game on all three phases from him. But yeah, the big question going into the game was, could Happy Valley's defense hang in there against a tough running game of Hampton? I think the answer was yes. Yes, they can. It was a quick start for Hampton, but second half, Happy Valley goes out and outscores them 13-0 to get the 19-12 win. Also want to send out some thoughts to Tyler Berry of Happy Valley. Had a scary-looking injury in that game. From what we can tell, things appear to be okay, but want to send out thoughts and prayers to Tyler. Obviously, a very scary-looking injury there. But, yeah, big game for Happy Valley, and obviously now they can stay in region play against Eagleton.
Yep, and that's the thing. Happy Valley's just dealt with so many injuries this year, kind of the story of their season. They go to also 1-0 in the region, Eagleton this week. They make the trip to Blount County. But just a big game for the Warriors, because not only their regular season winning streak on the line, 10 in a row, but this could potentially determine the region champion down the road, depending on how things play out with Hampton. Don't rule out the Bulldogs just yet. Dominic Burleson, if he and that offensive line can get going, they can be a dark horse later on down the road. But just what do you think about this week's game against Eagleton for Happy Valley?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you mentioned the injuries. Happy Valley has to hope that they can stay somewhat healthy. That's a big question for them. But, yeah, it's a 10-game winning streak on the line, at least in terms of the regular season. And it's a big task. Eagleton has played well here in the early going. It's always hard to go on the road and win. You kind of mess up your routine. It's just a different kind of feel to it, especially in a big region game like that. Can Happy Valley win without much of a passing game? They did this past week. You would think they'd have a good chance to again. That defense will travel. That defense will absolutely travel. Elizabethan, Blount County, Memphis, I don't care. That defense is one of the toughest in 2A. And, yeah, it'll be tough for Eagleton to get anything going. So, big spot here for the Warriors and Jason Jarrett.
They'll be traveling a long way this week, that's for sure. But just our Sports Huddle Game of the Week this week. This one, kind of a no-brainer given the rankings. Science Hill, ranked number 10 in the state, Class 3A, hosts the third-ranked team in Tennessee in Maryville. The Red Rebels have won 41 straight games against Northeast Tennessee teams. So what's it going to take for Science Hill to end that streak against a longtime nemesis, Jeff?
Well, I think they may have got the blueprint actually Saturday at a college game just 2 miles down the road, because I know Stacy Carter attended the ETSU versus North Dakota State game, which no one gave the Bucks a chance to win. And then ETSU comes so close to pulling off that upset. So I think Science Hill's a lot of the same things. You can't be intimidated by the big red M, seeing on the side of those helmets, or, the reputation of Maryville, who's clearly been for the last, 25 years, the top football program in East Tennessee and all, with multiple state championships. But now Maryville was talking run heavy. They're a team obviously relies so much on the run with that triple option offense, and Will Jones, the sophomore quarterback, running it. Got a couple of good backs there with Price Davis and Cameron Porter. But they can throw the ball, with needed there to Colton Faust and Britton Barrett. And then they've got another, seems like every week we're talking about this big offensive line Science Hill's having to go against. And, it's another challenge this week, that they've got with some big boys there on Maryville. Then on the other side of the ball, Zach Hemphill, a defensive tackle, is really a guy on that line that's hard to handle. And then they've got a couple of great outside linebackers, particularly David Crawford, who, walks down and all. And then you've got Jackson Rutledge on the other side's really good. And then on the back end, I've got two really good safeties as well with Andrew Smith and the other Andrew Smith. This kid's like 6'3", though, really long player. And then a senior Nolan White back there. So, they're loaded, obviously, on their defense from the front end to the back end.
What would you say the chances are Maryville is going to know where Baylor Necessary is at all times?
Oh, I wouldn't think that would be a no-brainer. I mean, the last 2 games, Baylor Necessary's had, 31 tackles, interception, I mean, had interception in the Elizabethan game was huge, so, I mean, defensively, you talk about having a spy on offense, you almost have a spy on them as a defensive player, really.
Yep. So a big game in Johnson City at Kermit-Tipton Stadium. Another big game, Dobyns-Bennett coming off back-to-back conference wins will cross the state line going to Asheville, North Carolina. Dobyns-Bennett's first trip to Asheville High School since September of 1941, 2.5 months before the attack on Pearl Harbor. So it's been a minute since Dobyns-Bennett's been over there. Dobyns-Bennett has never won there. They tied one time over there and then lost the last time. Dobyns-Bennett defeated Asheville 41-16 last year. This year, Asheville does return several of the skill guys who played in last year's game, including quarterback Meek Slidell. And just when Joey Christian talked today about Asheville, speed.
Just got speed all over the field. And just like last year, it all starts with Meek Slidell. He's such a golly, man, I think he could play at a very high level in college. They're throwing it about 70% of the time, but they still got Josh Ellis at running back, and they play Kaheen Plummer at running back. Both those guys, I mean, they're just so fast. They just, man, if they get an inch, they're going to take 80 yards on the field. So, but that's neither here nor there. We're going to have to keep them in front of us, and then all the guys out on the edge that they throw it to and try to get the ball in their hands, are just very athletic, fast guys that, quite honestly, we'll have a hard time running with. It's funny because Farragut, we were probably about even. Greenville had a huge size advantage against us. We probably held a little bit of a size advantage against Westridge. And then last week, Jeff County had a huge size advantage against us. Well, flip it around. That's what's so great about high school football. We have a size advantage against Asheville in the line of scrimmage. So, having said that, but that don't mean you're going to win. I mean, look at last week. So, we've got to be able to hopefully lean on that. If that is a true advantage for us, then we can lean on that and create some extra yards for our running backs and things like that. So, it'll be that's some of the big things. That's what I love about high school football. Every game is so different team, and what was an advantage for you last week is now a disadvantage, and vice versa.
So that's big for Dobyns-Bennett. They have to keep guys in front of them. They cannot let guys get in open space. That's been a concern in the first part of the year. Now, last week, they were able to, for the most part, keep Jefferson County's running backs ahead of them. There was a couple of times when Sean Jackson was able to break free. He broke free on a touchdown run from 22 yards, and then he did get free on a 30-something yard touchdown pass. And we saw how Farragut in week 1 got Robbie Jacobs in open space. So what Dobyns-Bennett has to do, they cannot let guys get behind them, because against a team like Asheville, that can hurt. Because Asheville, lest we forget, they jumped ahead 16-7 in last year's meeting before Dobyns-Bennett scored 5 unanswered touchdowns to win that game. So just a big game for Dobyns-Bennett. Their first time, it's a new environment for all of them. It's a new environment for Joey Christian. It'll be a new environment for me on Friday night. I'll get to see high school football in North Carolina for the first time myself, and I got to be honest with you, I'm looking forward to it. Just to see how these two programs, tradition-rich programs, stack up against each other, because lest we forget, Asheville is the program of Charlie Choo Choo Justice, 2-time Heisman runner-up at the University of North Carolina, and some guy by the name of Leonard Little, you might have heard of him, played at Tennessee back in the day, played for the Super Bowl champion St. Louis Rams. So just a battle of tradition-rich programs over there in Asheville, North Carolina, and I got to tell you, I am looking forward to it. Another big game, this one is a conference game. West Ridge hits the road, goes to William Blount, and this right here, William Blount, a 34-33 conference win last week at Morristown East. So this game, last year, it ended up deciding the final playoff spot. Andrew, I got to think West Ridge, they got to be thinking their postseason fate, especially if they want a home playoff game. when they're going into this week's game.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's already been a tough start in conference for West Ridge with that Dobbins-Bennett game earlier this year. You can't afford another big loss in conference, and William Blount's going to be a tough foe. Obviously, going down that way certainly does not make it much easier. But, I mean, you've got a veteran, experienced quarterback in Trey Frazier making that trip. It's a lot easier to have confidence in these kind of games when you have a guy that's been there, that's done that, and Trey obviously has. It will be key for me to see if West Ridge can establish their running attack early. If they can move the ball on the ground, it will really help set up Trey and allow him to be comfortable both on the move as a runner but also as a passer. You don't want to see that West Ridge offense become one-dimensional and just pray that Trey can go make plays with his arm. He has the talent to do it, but you don't want to put yourself in that position. You want to try and be a balanced offense, especially against a tough William Blount team. And, you mentioned potential playoff implications here for the Wolves. It'll be a big one down there in Blount County.
Yep. Absolutely. So, and not to mention last year, one of Trey Frazier's better games offensively came against William Blount. West Ridge won that game 49-38 in Blountville, but then just a week or two later, Trey Frazier goes down with a season-ending injury. So that's the key. Trey Frazier, obviously, for West Ridge to succeed, Trey Frazier, when he's healthy and he's on target, I mean, he is dangerous as any quarterback you've seen in Northeast Tennessee or really anywhere. One other conference game that I'll allude to real quick, David Crockett hits the road after a bye week after their Musket Bowl win. They hit the road, go to Cott County. Obviously, Cott County struggling. That was Crockett's one region win last year. So Crockett can really boost its playoff position should they get the win this week in Newport. Also, Crockett's rival Daniel Boone, desperation mode for the Trailblazers. This week, they meet Elizabethton at William B. Green Jr. Stadium at ETSU. Last year, the scheduled meeting did not happen because of lightning and other reschedulings. This year, so to resolve it, there's no home or away. It's at ETSU. So, Jeff, just desperation mode right now for Daniel Boone and Elizabethton, obviously on a roll after their opening loss.
Yeah, and an exciting, opportunity for all these high school kids to get a play there at, William B. Green Stadium. A couple of years ago, Daniel Boone actually, one of their big wins when they had their undefeated season was a 7-0 win over Elizabethton, So, I mean, Cyclones looking for a little revenge, even though, like I said, it's been a couple of years now. But Elizabethton, since that opening game loss to Science Hill, I mean, they've really been on fire. I mean, they've been, hard to handle for Granger and Cherokee, and the teams they played since then. So, I look for the Cyclones. Unfortunately for Boone, I mean, Elizabethton's not a team you're probably wanting to get your first win against.
So there's a look around the area for Week 5. Hard to believe we're already almost at the halfway point of the high school football season. So if nothing else, let's enjoy it while we've got it. And we want to thank you for tuning in this week. We want to thank Jeff Birchfield, Andrew Smith for their contributions. And we want to thank Lazy J Farms for graciously sponsoring our show. And let's hear from them. And then we'll catch you next week on the Sports Huddle.
Lazy J Farms has been raising the finest cattle in all-natural pork for 3 generations. Our blonde Aquitaine herd offers a leaner, healthier, and more tasteful beef that ships from our store directly to your freezer. This is the way your grandfather shot for meat, only now we wrap it, seal it, and send it right to your door. We have plenty of options to pick from, and they're all fresh and natural. Just visit our website at lazyjbeef.com and choose your package. We'll get it straight to you.